During the isolation period, I went through the worst phase of my life. I was 30 years old and had just gone through a painful separation. I discovered my wife cheating on me, and it felt like my world had shattered. Thankfully, we didn't have children, which made things slightly less complicated. But I lost the house we had bought together, a house I had practically paid for on my own. The house had been purchased from her sister, and while we were still in the process of transferring the title to our names, both she and her sister deceived me in every way imaginable. I walked away from that marriage with nothing but losses. As if that wasn't enough, I lost my job in the same month and was drowning in debt. Some from the furniture we had bought together and others from loans my ex-wife had taken out without my knowledge. With no family nearby and no alternatives left, I was forced to move to a rundown neighborhood in Miami, a place I would have never imagined myself living. I managed to scrape together just enough money to rent a small shack. It was all I could afford at the time. To survive, I started taking odd jobs, but they were barely enough to cover my most basic needs. I lived in that neighborhood for almost 3 years. During that time, I met some genuinely kind-hearted people, but I also encountered others who made life there feel even harder. My biggest dream was to leave that place behind. Many romanticize life in such neighborhoods, but the reality is harsh. No one should have to live like that. I'm an electrician by trade, so I managed to pick up occasional work within the community to keep myself afloat. I adapted, but my focus was always on finding a way out. One of my neighbors was a woman named Sarah. She was a warm, kind-hearted person, and we often chatted. Sarah lived alone just like me and had a difficult past. She once shared her story with me. When she was younger, she dated a wealthy guy from downtown Miami. He would always tell her he was going to marry her and take her away from her struggles. But when she got pregnant, he disappeared from her life. When the baby was born, she sought him out for help, desperate for support. That's when she found out he had died in a motorcycle accident. His mother helped Sarah financially for a while, but the family was planning to move to Portugal and offered to take the baby with them, promising he'd have a better life there. Sarah, overwhelmed by fear and the harsh reality of raising a child in poverty, reluctantly agreed. Even now, she deeply regrets that decision. She lives with constant sadness, and every time she talks about it, she cries. Sarah and I became close friends during those 3 years. We helped each other whenever we could. There were nights when she'd bring me a pack of noodles or an egg when I had nothing, and I'd return the favor when I could. Our bond of friendship and trust grew stronger over time. Eventually, things started looking up for me. After paying off my debts and enduring nearly 3 years of hardship, I landed a steady job as an electrician at a residential complex. On weekends, I took side jobs to save extra money. With a clean slate and a stable income, I finally left the neighborhood. I rented a modest house in a quieter area, and my quality of life improved drastically. I slept better, no longer worried about stray bullets, and didn't have to deal with loud music blaring all night. Occasionally, I would visit my old neighborhood to see the few friends I had made, including Sarah. Interestingly, it wasn't until after I moved that Sarah and I started seeing each other differently. When I visited her, our conversations became deeper, and our text messages took on a more intimate tone. She started confiding in me about her desire to leave the neighborhood too. One day, on my birthday, I invited Sarah over for dinner. That night marked the first time we were more than friends. From then on, things evolved naturally. She started spending more time at my place, leaving some of her belongings, and before I knew it, she had practically moved in. I didn't mind. I was happy and enjoyed her company. For nearly a year, everything seemed perfect, until I discovered she had been cheating on me. And it wasn't just one person. It was with multiple men. Her best friend, Emma, who was like a sister to her, was the one who exposed her. Emma showed me photos of Sarah with other men at various locations. It turned out Sarah had been seeing a man from the neighborhood, a coworker, and even a few guys she met at local bars. Emma admitted she wasn't exposing Sarah out of concern for me. She was driven by revenge. One of the men Sarah was seeing was someone Emma had feelings for. Despite Emma warning Sarah repeatedly, she had gone ahead and gotten involved with him. That same day, I gathered all of Sarah's belongings, took them back to her old shack, and left them there. I sent her a text with photos of her things scattered on the floor and even a video I had of her dancing provocatively at a party. When she saw the messages, she called me in tears, begging for a chance to explain. I listened to her excuses, but I had already made up my mind. Before hanging up, I told her, "Sarah, that shack is where you belong. You never should have left it." If you have a similar story, feel free to share it in the comments if you'd like me to share it. Thanks for watching until the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.